Okay, so this is the top 5 hardest heroes in Overwatch to use on console. Go sub to my Twitch. I do Overwatch and Minecraft and Fortnite and stuff, video games. Okay, so number 5 may be a little bit surprising to some people, but it's Genji. So it's actually really hard to keep double jumping while shooting because of how the controls are set up. So you kind of have to change your jump to not get hit. You have to change your jump to like a bumper, and then you have to press that while shooting, and it just doesn't feel right. You're like using too many fingers in like the exact same way. It's like weird. And also, it's really hard to do 360 dashes or sword slices when you see a player at the corner of your eye, because it takes a lot of practice to be able to hit those without completely missing every single time. But with the mouse, you just flick it a little bit, you just move it a little bit to the left, and boom, you just gotta dash straight up at an Ana. Of course, with a mouse. And lastly, for Genji, I would just say that his like shurikens are really hard to time, projectiles are hard, especially the primary. The secondary, spread, not too bad, kind of shotgun-like, but definitely the number 4, Zenyatta. So for Zenyatta, it's like really surprisingly hard to steadily move the joystick for a charge up, secondary fire, to shoot through like small crevices and around corners, like how you have to do to get some ult charge. You get some cheeky shots at the tanks because you're shooting in like a very thin space, but really hard to line those up when they're really thin. You know what I mean, bro? And of course, if you've seen like Jay Jonik, or any like great computer Zen player, you'll see how they're able to quickly flick their cursor toward the target, they flick it across the screen to kill close and far away enemies. But you and I both know there's no way in hell you're hitting a Fawn in the Sky or Reaper in your face on console. Definitely not a headshot. Maybe a cheeky body shot, but no headshot. But I will say, orbs are no problem, and the ult is easy to use on console, it's fine. And a body shotting Zen that heals and uses discords well and does a good ult can be really good in many situations, so still a great pick for console. But definitely a little harder than Genji. So number 3 is the one and only Grandma Ana. So the scope version, or holding down the left trigger, is like obviously pretty hard to get flicks on. So you kind of scope in and try to get flicks against on your teammates or your enemies to heal or damage them, but it is pretty hard to get flicks with those, obviously. But mainly the sleep dart and the no scope shooting are the hardest thing to do on console. Like, first of all, it's hard to keep the joystick steady, so it's hard to hit accurate sleep darts like 90, 70, 80% of the time, and especially against mobile squishy heroes like Genji or Tracer. Like, really hard to get those. And it's really, really, really hard to get a 360 or 180 sleep dart flick that normally almost any Ana computer player can make. But it's hard as fuck on console. And second of all, no scope shooting is just in general really hard to aim because projectiles are much harder on console, and on computer I think projectiles are harder too, but because you have to have really good accuracy and timing, so you kind of have to master it just to be able to hit stuff that you can normally easily hit in a scope version. So, and it kind of like makes it so you can't really heal at close range of Ana unless you're really good. And like, that's why Soldier isn't on this. First of all the Soldiers players played Call of Duty, and he is Call of Duty. But mainly for him, you point and hold down the trigger. But for Zenyatta, Genji, Ana, projectiles are harder to hit, and on console they're especially harder because you have to have really good accuracy. But as you'll see on the second to last on this list, not all hit scans are easy on console, and I would say most aren't easy. Number 2 is McCree. That joint smoking, fan the hammering, headshot hitting, goddamn best cowboy Overwatch has ever seen. 0 flick headshots almost ever on console. Ever. But flick body shots are easy to come by. Not too hard. Hit scan, as I said, isn't impossible. Headshots, though, maybe a little bit. So, when there's a tracer coming by, as you've seen Pine, you could tell he could just, boom, hit a headshot. Easily. Stun them, hit a headshot. Kill the tracer. But it's so much harder. On console? Because you have to be super accurate and fast with your cursor slash joystick mouse thing. And it's actually harder to line up fan the hammer. Think about it. With the mouse, you kind of just press it, and then you kind of just slowly drag it down. But on console, you kind of have to keep it down, and then you line it up perfectly some of the time. So it's a little bit harder to fan the hammer, but fan the hammer is the easiest part. Because of the recoil, it's a little hard though. On console, McCree. Before I get to the number 1 spot, now I'm gonna do a few honorable mentions, kind of like Watch Mojo style. So Doomfist is kind of hard similarly to Genji is. It's hard to turn completely around with that high sensitivity. So a good computer Doomfist can uppercut and Hulk smash, I forget what the ability's called, but Hulk smash the opposite way in a second. You just turn the mouse around 360, but not so much on console. Second honorable mention is Ash. The most white-haired, dying, McCree sexual tension having, Bob throwing cowgirl Overwatch has ever seen. / Bob. B-O-B. So I'm going to do this one a little bit quicker, but basically it's just surprisingly hard to aim with scope. Surprisingly. Because it's has this recoil thing, and you kind of gotta aim it perfectly. It's a very kind of sniper kind of thing, but it's more close ranged. But unscoped is surprisingly easy. Very surprisingly. Final honorable mention is the impossible to use Bastion. I mean, literally, you have to hold down the left trigger to heal. How do you even do that while shooting with the other trigger? And you literally, this is not a joke, you have to hold down the right trigger, and then you have to shoot at people. You have to move the joystick and hold down the trigger, and then it shoots at people. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know how hard it is to play Bastion on console? It's ridiculous.
Double, triple kill.
Number 1 may not be a surprise to a lot of you, but Widowmaker here. Just so you know, guys, wait till the end, for I will be doing an impression of all of the heroes on this list. And yeah, I am a bit of an Overwatch impressionist because of how much I played. Anyway, I've heard their voice a lot. Anyway, so with Widowmaker, it's a sniper, right? So you have to be really accurate. Flicks, when you flick it and get a flick headshot, it's 1,000 times harder with the joystick. And especially when you do that stupid ass thing where you grapple to a high place and then jump as you're doing it, turn on completely around and get a headshot. No way, Jose. That is not happening on console. Definitely not headshots. So joysticks just can't move as quickly and accurately as a mouse. Even using the ultimate is really hard because you have to line up headshots without twitching a little and missing by an inch or more. I have experience. I know how stable a mouse is. You just hold and point. Just a disclaimer, frankly, the reason that is there aren't really professional, controller players, and, controller players are worse in general is because all the controller players basically most of them are like below 20. So like they might take it kind of seriously, but obviously like a lot of people on computer like think they could probably make it to top 500 and get in the Overwatch League, but on console there's no league and people don't take it as seriously. And like I feel like as long as I've been playing, I've always thought I could be better on computer. So just want to get that out there. But if a controller player played 100 hours of Widow in competitive and then did a 1v1 against a computer player that's played 50, I'm sure the console player would win, okay? So, no haters toward console plays.
When I think about you, my feelings can